All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you live from the nation's capital. It's time for us to take a look at what the papers are saying this morning. And of course, we'll be starting with the Daily Trust newspaper as usual. Now, the lead story there says Naira redesign. 3 governors under our radar over stashed cash. This is according to the EFCC chair. And some of the writers there say state chief executives mulling table payments to launder money. Commission to intensify BDC's raid, monitor banks. Cautions people selling property to hoarders. That story is on page 4 on the Daily Trust newspaper. And you'd find other stories as well. Buhari commissions Nigeria-Cameroon joint border post bridge. We are not against salary increase for all workers, but RMAFC boss. You find the details following that bot on page 27 on the Daily Trust newspaper, and on page 37, Shaban versus Sani apprehension in Kaduna APC as court rules on governorship primary today. You would find other interesting stories on page 34. INEC chairman to Rex. Don't go to government houses. Federal government to fund Kaduna Kano, other rail project with Chinese, Portuguese, Turkish loans. And on page 27, you find a business story about Nigeria's non-oil export rises by 62% to $2.59 billion in 1 year. These are the major stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper next. The lead story here says federal government plans supplementary budget over rising inflation depreciation. We have writers on that story that say dollar closes at 895 naira on Thursday. Reps stick to 437.57 naira exchange rate. Government eyes more taxes. Fewer incentives for Nigerians in 2023. Federal government mulls Chinese, Portuguese loans for railway projects. We also have more stories. Below that particular story is a pictorial of a Nigerian-born woman, Azubu Ike, who becomes a U.S. Army general. We have more stories from the top of the page. Emirates. More airlines may suspend Nigeria operations. We also have Wike revokes Atiku campaign chairman's plot. Details can be found on page 26. Tinubu amends timetable just to host first rally. And just beside the nameplate there, Afeni Ferre's senior chiefs to settle Fashoranti Adebanjo row. Below the page there, we have Lagos untouchable Agberos. Lagos untouchable Agberos enjoy government backing, says driver's president. UK remands 28-year-old Nigerian for stabbing mother to death, and ASU summons NEC meeting over half salary. These are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper this morning, Atiku firm in row over $5.9 million visa bill payment. Company writes PDP candidate, no agreement signed, says ex-VP's lawyer. You'd find other stories. Tinubu donates 100 million to Kogi flood victims. Federal government blames states for rise in out-of-school children. That story is on page 5 on the Nation newspaper. And then Oyo presents 310 billion naira budget. Renewed Hope Action Plan is authentic, says APC PCC. And then Ekiti to spend 113.6 billion naira next year. You'd also see the story about Abuja hotels guests for security profiling over terror alert. Military needs no prompting to defend Nigeria, says defense headquarters. Floods relief likely for farmers. Well, that's good news because that devastation is quite disheartening, I must say. 52 Ijebu traditional rulers endorse Abiodun for second term, and that story is on page 6. These are the major stories on the Nation.
All right, next is Nigerian Tribune, and we'll start with the lead story there that says, there will be no cabal in my government, says Atiku. The writers on that story says, we have moved ahead over face-off with 5 PDP governors. Atiku in talks with 5 APC governors campaign organization. You can find details of that story on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune. At the top of the page, I did not say Adebanjo is no longer acting leader of Afenifere, says Fashoranti. And more stories below the nameplates there. Infrastructure, education, health prioritized in 310 billion naira or your 2023 budget proposal. Barons after our operatives, Marwa raises alarm. State House 2023 budgetary provision almost 50% less than 2022 budget. PermSec laments. We have more stories. Awujale 51 other Ijebu traditional rulers endorse Abiodun for second term. INEC deploys 19 new RECs. Adeniran Salami Agbaje take charge of Oyo, Ekiti, and Oshun. Again, Emirates suspends flight to Nigeria, and these are some of the major stories on Nigerian Tribune.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Guardian newspaper this morning. After Emirates, more airlines to quit over $500 million trapped funds. CBN reps interventions have not helped crisis. Emirates departure will hurt local travelers more, travel agencies say. You also see a statement from Sirika, we are not threatened by withdrawals. You'd find other stories as well on the Guardian newspaper this morning. Months after Kuje jail attack, beg your pardon, Buhari's comprehensive report yet to surface. Fasaranti makes U-turn, says Adebanjo remains Afenifere leader. Find other stories as well. COP Tinubu hail Obasanjo as parties announce ceasefire in Ethiopian civil war. Stop backing infrastructure loans with natural resources, Additional warns African governments. And on page 25, Kanu takes battle for freedom to Supreme Court. Tinubu promises to give Kogi people sense of belonging. These are the major stories on The Guardian.
Up next is this day newspaper. From top of the page there, Buhari rejoices with Femi Otedola on 60th birthday. We have crisis over Oloto's stool as Remi Tinubu allegedly imposes aid. And then below the mast there, we have UN Lords Obasanjo's role as Ethiopia Tigray sign peace deal. 2023 elections won't be decided in Paris or Dubai. APC mocks PDP. Atiku says opposition party is drowning. Kicks off campaign in just November 15. And the lead story here says Melaye scolds Shatima, says presidential villa not for bandits. And we have writers that insist Atiku, we're yet to resolve PDP crisis, but we've moved ahead. Declares no cabal will run his government, insists call for IU's removal untimely, counterproductive, and promises to support death penalty for kidnappers as president. And these are some of the stories on this day newspaper.
Well, let's take a look at some more stories on the Nigerian Tribune. There will be no cabal in my government. That's according to Atiku. Oh, well, I beg your pardon. Let's take a look at the stories on the Leadership newspaper this morning. After losing PDP, G5, Atiku in talks with 5 APC governors. Will reveal their identities soon, says Olorugbonio. It's wishful thinking, APC. Politics of religion will burn down Nigeria, Wike warns. Tinubu's manifesto not copy and paste, campaign council insists. You'd find other stories as well on the Leadership newspaper. Again, Emirates suspends operations in Nigeria over trapped funds. Drug dealers killing NDLEA officers, Marwa cries out. Federal government to complete rail project with loans from China, Portugal, and Turkey. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper this morning.
Okay, well, right about now, we'll have to introduce our guest, Nuruddin Abdullah. He's the editor of 21st Century Chronicles, joining us now for an analysis of some of the stories. on the dailies this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Ashley.
All right, so let's begin with the lead story on Daily Trust. That's talking about the Naira redesign and, 3 governors under our radar over stashed cash, says EFCC chair. I think there were stories that, went around on social media and also reports on this particular, issue within the week. So let's have your thoughts on this.
So I don't know what the EFCC chairman means by having the governors under the anti-corruption radar. One, the governors are immune from criminal prosecution. So I don't know. But fundamentally, I think, therefore, that statement seems political. After all, we have 36 state governors, serving governors. So when you have only 3, so you are saying that the remaining 33 are clean. What is happening in all the government houses across the country is almost the same as far as this is concerned. Only that, some governors are more discreet in siphoning the public funds than others. Some are smarter than others. But everybody knows, unlike what the president said, that talking about stashing of funds by civil servants, maybe, I don't know, but public officials, governors don't need to send people to queue. They call the bank managers to come with bullion vans and evacuate this cash to the banks. You understand? Otherwise, you can go to the bank with your 100, 500, The bank manager may not attend to you. Maybe in one of the posh areas, Maitama, Usi, and what if you, to evacuate such cash. So let the anti-corruption agency be more focused, and see maybe how this dollar crisis is going to end. It's almost getting to 900 now. Mm-hmm. We don't know what happens next week.
Okay, well, on your talk about you don't know the 3 governors, it says here, the details is actually on page 4, and it says that in an exclusive interview with the EFCC chairman, it disclosed that some governors are all out devising means to launder money they stashed in their houses, and he said so far they're closely monitoring 3 of them. 3 of them. But he did not disclose, which of the governors.
I'm not trying to contradict the EFCC chairman, but we all know that no governor keeps Naira in their vaults. No, they don't. They get the Naira. They have their BDCs. Most of them, they are registered as proxies. Majority of them, they are working for politicians. You remember his predecessor, Ibrahim Magu, based on the report by Justice Salami set up by the federal government to investigate his tenure, a BDC operator in Kaduna was arrested with more than 200 bank accounts, laundering money in billions for the former EFCC chairman. They don't launder cash. They don't launder Naira, no. They deal with dollar, pounds, and euro. He knows. So, antagonizing the economic space, causing all manner of confusion on the eve of election, I don't know what economic policy is that. The Naira is getting to 900. Only God knows what happened next week, because the politicians are desperate. We're talking about politicians. We're talking about ministers who have served for 8 years. We are talking about permanent secretaries. We are talking about topmost directors. They don't keep Naira, they keep dollar. And therefore, whatever they get from the government vault now, they convert it into that dollar. And that's why the dollar only got knows. It may get into 1,500 before February or so. So you understand? Even now, the politicians, they don't dish out naira anymore. No, they give dollar. It's easy. One, what do you call it? One bundle of dollar now, it's almost 9 million. Can you imagine? So who will keep, you'll be moving around with Ghana must go? No. They should know this, please. And they should know where to check. Government houses, ministers' mansions.
Monitoring banks as well.
So look at all the, from the Yahoo perspective to all other forms of criminalities, particularly with the financial system. It's only executed successfully with insiders. Look at that politician from Kogi. You're an insider. So that's how they do it. There was a story just this morning that a former bank staff, connived and stole about 20 million from the bank he worked with. So these are they need to firm up their mechanisms, of preventive mechanisms, but not actually newspaper interviews or.
Well, another very interesting story that looks closely related to this one is the one about the INEC chairman telling Rex to not go to government houses. Why do you think he made such a statement?
Yeah, we know what they do. Most of them now maybe don't go, maybe he goes to the government house, particularly when they resume mostly. That's what they do. I don't know, maybe that's a kind of usual protocol, like the commissioner of police and what have you, But more importantly, I remember 2003 elections in Kaduna. We were covering the election at that time. So the INEC chairman we learned, we saw, because we saw him there, was at the residence of the then vice president. I don't want to mention names. We asked him, on election day, what is this man doing here? You understand that kind of. So it's a very good advice, and some of the Rex need to be reprimanded if they do. But in the last couple of years, we used to have very good Rex. Comrade Igini, he just finished his tenure from Akwa Ibom. It's one. And particularly, when you appoint people with no political leanings, when you appoint strictly professionals, people from the civil society organizations, you see very fine. Look at that album, Mr. Igini. I always give it. You can't browbeat him. You can't bribe him that, So, they live above the board. So we hope that they will not go to the government house. Maybe it's asking them not to go to the government house during daytime.
Can do that.
Just before we move on to more stories, let's take a look at the City and Crime page on Daily Trust newspaper. That's pages 14 and 35. We have a story here of a man shooting his neighbor dead while aiming at wife's lover in Kwara State. We have on banditry, 15 Abuja communities face food shortage. We also have investment scammer remanded in Kwara. We have jungle justice. Again, youth set ablaze motorcycle thief in Jos. We also have Bayelsa father injures 9-year-old son for finishing soup. And we have in Kano State, 15 killed in fire incidents in October, and also group laments under reporting of bandits attacks in Kaduna community. Do you think this particular bandit attacks is being underreported, as claimed by this group?
By who?
A group. It's a non-governmental organization, Northern Emancipation Network.
So I don't know. Maybe I don't think that is a fact, because Kaduna State government in particular, we're even wondering. Normally, the police, the political authorities across the state, when there is an incident like that, they downplay it. They try as much as possible to cut off the figures and whatever. But Kaduna in the last couple of years is not doing so. There is periodic reports of all the attacks, the religious, criminal, terrorism, and what have you. They do it quarterly, and at the end of the year, there will be a book that is done. The Commissioner of Internal Security will do a presentation before the Security Council. So even on the part of the government, there is none. Yesterday, for instance, if you check even the social media handles of the ministry, even yesterday when 2 civilians were killed by a landmine, it was the commissioner, Mr. Arwan, that posted it. So on the part of the government, and not to talk about the media. So I don't think that it has been underreported, particularly by the media or even the authorities.
Okay. Very interesting.
All right, so can you just briefly, quickly talk about the Bielsa story of a father injuring a 9-year-old for finishing soup?
I don't know. That must be poverty-induced criminality. In Imo last week, a father beat up his 2-month-old baby. It's a miracle, that's the name, I remember, for disturbing his sleep.
Okay, where the baby's arm had to be
exactly, and
amputated.
he injured it, and it has to be. He permanently disabled that child. So, but I think that's a mental case. If you don't want all this, why do you have the baby in the first place? You can make the arrangement. No baby, you can have your wife, but no baby. It's understandable. And this Bielsa, but I think this issue of Bielsa, I think it's a poverty-induced finishing soup. So it seems that the economic reality is really worrisome. Inflation everywhere, Or another case of a mental something. Just like you said that another man shot dead his neighbor, trying to kill his lover. When you realize that there is incompatibility between couples, there are ways of ending the union.
Absolutely.
Go to court. Let her go. Let her go meet whoever her lover is. So I don't know why all this stress. Now it's deep soup because you use an arm. Maybe he doesn't even have license to on the firearms now, and you use it against a neighbor. It's a permanent soup, and she may end up with a lover. So why the stress? Cut it. There is a way of dissolving this issue. Okay.
All right. It's very, very sad, I must say. Well, now let's move on to other issues on our papers this morning, talking about airlines. After Emirates, more airlines to quit over $500 million trapped funds. That story is on the Guardian newspaper as its lead story this morning.
This is really sad, Really sad. And, the foreign airlines in particular, the ability to retrieve their funds, has been ongoing since, I think, last year. And money has been piling. Not to talk of the current dollar crisis with this redesign, Naira redesign, whatever. And what people don't know is this. It has economic implication. You are crying for FDIs. So when there are, even direct flights to your country, how will people go? And even people that travel out, most of these people that are responsible for all these economic difficulties, their kids study abroad. They go out for the minutest medical attention. Their family members spend their vacations, this choice, Dubai in particular. Understand? So it's really, it will have a deeper implication. So now, how many flights are going to Dubai? Your local airlines are moribund. Yes. Almost more than 80% of them are now being run by AMCON because they were funded in the first place by some dubious politicians with monies largely stolen from public funds. Pause. So, that is it. So the involvement particularly of and that's why we are signing this BASA agreement. So I don't know how we were unable to manage the situation. The other time we had this issue of the Emirates, slots and what have you. But now it's not even that issue. Your economy cannot guarantee their business stay here. So it's a serious source of concern, and I hope that whoever emerges as president in the next couple of months will address this issue once and for all. They'll put their economic cap, put the right people at the aviation
sector,
so that they sort this out, because it's affecting our economy, particularly our investments.
All right, well, still talking about our economy, the Punch newspaper carried a lead story that talks about federal government planning a supplementary budget over rising inflation and depreciation. Is there need to panic considering the rise as the dollar closes at 895 naira on yesterday?
Of course, we're already panicking. I think maybe minus the president, based on his last week interview with one Hausa television station. Everybody is concerned, but the president apparently is not, for obvious reasons. Therefore, supplementary budgets. You know what that means? Your budget has more than 10 trillion deficits in an election year. You have dozens of projects without clear investors. Look at the Abuja-Kano standard gauge rail. It has been lying there. Look at the Ibadan-Abuja standard gauge. Amechi has been telling us that the Chinese are no longer giving us money. But I saw a story here. We are saying that we are looking to Turkey.
Yes.
Chinese and China and Portuguese.
No, yeah, the Chinese have been there. We don't know why they are for dragging. Maybe because they look at the economic realities. If we give you money, how are you going to pay it? The $500 million Abuja Kaduna train has been off for almost 8 months now. The last story Daily Trust did was they said that they lost more than 600 million naira or so. So it means that there are so many intervening variables. Security is one. When we give you money to build this project, you cannot commission Zungeru, even though we have electricity problem because of banditry. Zungeru has been ready for more than 6 months, according to the minister. But you cannot even go there. You can't even commission it. Mm-hmm. You can't evacuate power to the national grid because of insecurity. More than 42 soldiers and policemen were killed some months back. So these are the realities. So whoever is loaning you money has to look at this. How are you going to pay? We can do the project. The project will be a no-go area. How are we going to recoup our money? So these are the realities. So it is not surprising with poor economic management, you should expect this. Even when all the economic managers are looking at different directions, I'm sorry to say, the CBN governor, look at this scenario. Rishi Sunak, the prime minister in UK, do you know why he became prominent, darling of Britons? Because of COVID. As the chancellor of the Exchequer, he shared money to British during the COVID. But now you are redesigning the money, the banknotes, and you are Minister of Finance, doesn't even know what is happening. So who is the chief economic advisor to the president? The ideal thing is when Mr. Emefiele, who lost out as a presidential candidate of as aspirant of the ruling party, is now back with this proposal. At least call the minister, take it to your people. What the Minister of Finance is populated by experts, economists, accountants, and what have you. What is your take on this? If you get the result, they will get back to you. They will say, okay, these are our understanding of the situation. Call a meeting with the CBN governor. But now she went to they are vilifying the lady. She went to the National Assembly and she was asked about Naira. She said, no, we were not consulted. So I think the best person to answer your question should be the CBN governor. And all manner of people were insulting the lady and what have you. So it's a problem. The economic managers are looking at different directions. CBN governor is doing something that the finance minister is not even aware of. And they all have implications. A layman on the street knows that the Naira redesign has implications. By 2020, according to the CBN, they spent more than 58 billion Naira to print about 1 trillion banknotes. That was just a segment. And now, you are bringing a brand new banknote. How much are we going to spend? You're already planning a budget that has 10 trillion deficit. You don't even know where to. The people that give us loans are no longer giving us loans, maybe because we are no longer credit worthy. I give example of the Abuja-Kaduna trend. We got loan from the Chinese because of our inability to secure even the environment. The facility is now followed for 8 months. Look at the Abuja Metro. How much did we spend? Billions. It didn't work for 6 months. The last time we did a story, the FCT municipality authorities were telling me that they need about 5 billion to fix the stolen tracks. This is something that's less than 40 kilometers.
That's a lot of money, I must say. Well, I would like for you to briefly comment on this before we wrap up. Still on the Punch newspaper, there is very beautiful, smiling Nigerian-born woman, Azubike, who became a U.S. Army general. Well, it seems like we don't really make it in our own country, but when we go elsewhere, we become stars. Why is it always like that?
The environment. The UK has been led now by a Hindu, a migrant. London has been run by a mayor with a Pakistani, a Muslim. Because, they have reached certain stage. Merit matters. Mm-hmm. But here, we have to just look at that. Yeah, which part of the country are you from? Which ethnic group are you from? Even if you are from, let's say, Kaduna, okay, which part of Kaduna, which senatorial zone? If you are from the central, which local government? The last appointment we made was from the other local government. So there is need for balance. All this. I read something somewhere that said that why is it that when Nigerians move to these developed countries, this superfluous religiosity, we are very religious people. Yeah, you go to the mosque, for instance, if you don't care, you have 5,000 shoes will be stolen. Okay. You understand? Then somebody answered that lady. He said, yes, because almost 70% of your prayer points have been answered. Mm. No banditry, no disrupted power
supply.
When you open the tap, there is water. You can jog on your street without being mocked down. You understand? Mm-hmm. So that is it. So meritocracy matters. Okay. If you work hard, you can rise. Nobody will look at your agenda. Nobody will look at where you come from. That's what. Take UK for instance now. Rishi Sunak. His parents are from India, born in Africa, Tanzania, and Kenya. Moved to the UK. He rose and he became the Prime Minister of England. He's a Hindu. England, heading God's own country, the headquarters of the Anglican Church.
Well,
very interesting, I
are
must
really
say.
changing.
It can happen here.
All right, with this, we'll actually have to wrap up this particular segment. Thank you so much, Nuruddin Abdullah, editor, 21st Century Chronicles, for
My
the
pleasure.
in-depth analysis on the papers this morning.